I learned that lesson when I woke up from surgery to find my daughter-in-law holding papers, smiling the same smile she had when she asked me to add her name to my house deed, just in case something happens. That was 6 months ago. Now I'm standing in a parking lot with nowhere to go, because while I was unconscious, recovering from what should have been a routine procedure, Jessica sold my house. The house I bought with my late husband 42 years ago. The house where I raised my son Daniel. The house where every wall held memories of birthdays, holidays, graduations. Gone. Sold to strangers for cash. And I didn't know until the new owners showed up at my hospital room with an eviction notice. My name is May. I'm 68 years old, and this is how my own family tried to rob me of everything I had worked my entire life to build. It started 8 months before the surgery. Daniel and Jessica had been living in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment with their 2 kids. Money was tight. Daniel's construction business had slowed down, and Jessica worked part-time at a grocery store. I understood their struggle. I had been there myself decades ago when my husband died suddenly and left me with a mortgage and a 10-year-old son to raise alone. So when they asked if they could move in with me temporarily, just until they got back on their feet, I said yes without hesitation. What kind of mother would I be if I didn't help my own son when he needed it? They moved in on a Tuesday. By Friday, Jessica had rearranged my entire kitchen. She said it made more sense her way, more efficient. I didn't argue. It was just cabinets. Within 2 weeks, she had taken over the living room with the kids' toys, moved my late husband's favorite armchair to the garage because it didn't match the aesthetic, and suggested I might be more comfortable eating dinner in my bedroom so the family could have proper meals together at the table. Still didn't see it. The warning signs. The slow takeover. I just thought she was trying to make the house feel like home for her children. I wanted to be understanding, flexible, the kind of mother-in-law who didn't cause problems. 3 months after they moved in, Jessica started talking about my health. How I seemed tired all the time. How I forgot things. How, at my age, I really should have someone helping me manage my affairs. May, what if something happens to you? She would say, with concern in her voice that sounded almost genuine. What if you have a fall and can't make decisions? Who would handle your finances? Your house? Daniel would nod along, backing her up. Mom, she has a point. You're not getting any younger. It would give us all peace of mind if we had some legal protections in place. Legal protections. That's what they called it. So I went to a lawyer Jessica recommended. A man in a small office above a nail salon who barely looked at me while he pushed papers across his desk. Jessica came with me to that appointment. She said it was to keep me company, but she answered most of the questions directed at me. Mrs. Harrison is concerned about estate planning, Jessica told him. She wants to make sure her son and his family are protected. The lawyer nodded and produced documents I didn't fully understand. Power of attorney, a deed transfer adding Jessica's name as joint owner with the right of survivorship, a new will that hadn't been properly explained. This just means I can help you if you get sick, Jessica assured me. It doesn't change anything about your ownership. You're still in complete control, I signed. God help me, I signed every page, because I trusted her, because I believed family looks out for each other, because the lawyer barely gave me time to read anything before flipping to the next signature line. That was my first mistake, but it wouldn't be my last. For the next few months, things seemed normal. Jessica and Daniel paid some bills. They bought groceries. Jessica even organized my medications and drove me to doctor's appointments. I thought I had made the right decision. I had help. I had family taking care of me. Then I started having chest pains, sharp stabbing sensations that took my breath away. Daniel insisted I see a doctor immediately. The cardiologist found a blockage and scheduled me for surgery within the week. I was scared, terrified actually. Heart surgery at 68 felt like tempting fate. But the doctor assured me it was routine, that people my age had this procedure all the time and recovered beautifully. The night before surgery, Jessica sat on the edge of my bed and held my hand. "Don't worry, May," she said softly. "We'll take care of everything while you're recovering. The house, the bills, everything. You just focus on getting better." Her words should have comforted me. Instead, something cold settled in my stomach. But I pushed it away. I was just nervous about the surgery. That's all. They wheeled me into the operating room at 6 in the morning. The anesthesiologist told me to count backward from 10. I made it to 7 before everything went dark. The surgery took 4 hours. Recovery was harder than I expected. The pain was intense. The drugs made me foggy and confused. I drifted in and out of consciousness for days, barely aware of my surroundings. Jessica visited every day. She brought flowers. She fluffed my pillows. She spoke to my doctors about my condition and my care plan. To everyone at the hospital, she looked like the perfect, devoted daughter-in-law. On day 5, she brought a stack of papers. "May, honey," she said in that syrupy voice she used when she wanted something. "The insurance company needs some signatures. Just routine paperwork about the surgery and your coverage." I was groggy from pain medication. My hand shook as I tried to hold the pen. Jessica guided my hand to each signature line, flipping pages quickly, not giving me time to focus on the words swimming before my eyes. "That's it. Just a few more," she encouraged. "You're doing great," I signed. Over and over, my signature getting sloppier with each page. I didn't know I was signing closing documents for the sale of my house. I didn't know she had listed the property 2 weeks earlier while I was preparing for surgery. I didn't know she had accepted a cash offer from investors who wanted a quick closing. I didn't know anything until day 8, when a well-dressed couple in their 40s walked into my hospital room with a sheriff's deputy and a handful of legal papers. "Mrs. Harrison?" the woman said. "I'm Karen Mitchell, and this is my husband Tom. We're the new owners of the property at 847 Maple Street. We're very sorry to bother you while you're recovering, but we need to discuss your move-out date." I stared at her. The words made no sense. My brain, still clouded with medication, couldn't process what she was saying. "There must be some mistake," I managed to say. "That's my house." "Actually," Tom said gently, pulling out paperwork, "we completed the purchase 6 days ago. The closing was handled by Jessica Harrison, who held power of attorney and was listed as co-owner on the deed. The sale was entirely legal." The room started spinning. "What sale?" "I never agreed to sell my house." Karen's face filled with sympathy. "Ma'am, according to our attorney, all the proper paperwork was filed. Jessica Harrison had the legal authority to complete the transaction. We paid $420,000, which was deposited into an account she specified. We're supposed to take possession next week. $420,000. My house, gone. Where's Jessica?" I asked, my voice rising. "Where's my son?" "We've been trying to contact them," the deputy said, "but they haven't responded to our calls. Their phone numbers appear to be disconnected." That's when I knew. That's when the full horror of what had happened crashed over me like a wave of ice water. I tried to sit up, but pain shot through my chest. A nurse rushed in, alarmed by the monitors beeping frantically. My blood pressure had spiked dangerously high. "Everyone out," she ordered. "Mrs. Harrison needs to rest. This discussion can continue later." But how could I rest? How could I breathe? My entire life had just been stolen from me by the people I trusted most in this world. After they left, I lay in that hospital bed and cried. Not gentle tears, but horrible, gasping sobs that made my surgical wounds scream with pain. A different nurse came and gave me something to calm down, but it didn't stop the anguish tearing through my soul. That night, when the hospital quieted and the hallways dimmed, I finally allowed myself to think clearly, to piece together the con that had been executed so perfectly while I fought for my life in surgery. Jessica had planned this for months, maybe from the very beginning, from the first day they moved into my house. Every kind gesture, every moment of care, every concern about my age and my health, had all been calculated moves in a game I didn't even know I was playing. The power of attorney, the deed transfer, the lawyer above the nail salon who probably wasn't even a real lawyer, all of it designed to give her legal access to my property while keeping me completely in the dark. And Daniel, my son, the baby boy I had sacrificed everything for, he had stood by and let it happen, maybe even helped plan it. The next morning, a social worker came to my room. Her name was Patricia, and she had kind eyes that had clearly seen too much human cruelty. "Mrs. Harrison," she said gently, "the hospital administration asked me to speak with you about your discharge plans. Given your current situation, we need to ensure you have somewhere safe to go." "I have nowhere," I told her. "They took everything." Patricia pulled a chair close to my bed. "I've reviewed your case. What happened to you is called elder financial abuse, and it's a serious crime. But right now we need to focus on immediate practical matters. Do you have any other family? Friends? Anyone who can help?" I thought about my younger sister Rachel, who lived 3 states away. We hadn't spoken much in recent years. Just Christmas cards and occasional phone calls. But she was all I had left. Patricia helped me call her. When Rachel answered and I tried to explain what had happened, my voice broke apart completely. "I'm getting on a plane right now," Rachel said immediately. "Don't worry, May. I'm coming." She arrived the next evening, walking into my hospital room like an avenging angel. Rachel had always been the tougher sister, the one who didn't take nonsense from anyone. She took one look at me, pale and broken in that hospital bed, and her face hardened into something fierce. "Tell me everything," she said. So I did. Every detail, every signature, every manipulation. When I finished, Rachel was silent for a long moment. "That little bitch," she finally said. "And Daniel, I never trusted him after he stole money from your purse when he was 16. You were too easy on him then, and he's been taking advantage ever since." "He was just a kid," I protested weakly. "He's 43 years old, May. He's not a kid. He's a grown man who just helped his wife steal your house while you were having heart surgery." The words hurt because they were true. I had made excuses for Daniel his entire life. Every time he got in trouble, every time he made bad decisions, every time he needed money to fix problems, he created himself. I had been there with my wallet open and my judgment suspended. And this is how he repaid me. By participating in the greatest betrayal of my life, Rachel immediately took control. She called her lawyer back home, who referred us to a local attorney named Margaret Stone, who specialized in elder abuse cases. Margaret came to the hospital that same evening, a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and an expression that said she had seen every scam imaginable. She reviewed my documents, listened to my story, and nodded grimly. "This is prosecutable. What they did is felony elder abuse and fraud. But first, we need to freeze any remaining assets and file for an emergency injunction." "The money from the house," I said. $420,000. "Where did it go?" Margaret made some calls right there from my hospital room. Within an hour, she had answers. The money was deposited into a joint account in Jessica's name, and then immediately withdrawn in cash. They also cleaned out your personal savings account and maxed out your credit cards. Total theft, approximately $460,000. I felt like I had been hit by a truck. Not only had they stolen my house, they had taken everything. My retirement savings, my emergency fund, the small investment account my late husband had left me. 68 years old, recovering from heart surgery. And I had nothing. "Can we get it back?" Rachel asked. "We can try," Margaret said. "But if they've already spent it or hidden it, recovery becomes much harder. Right now, our priority is criminal charges and making sure May has legal protection going forward." That night, after everyone left, I lay in the dark and thought about Daniel as a little boy, 7 years old, crying because his father had died, clinging to me and saying, "Don't leave me, Mommy. Promise you won't leave." I had promised, and I had kept that promise through poverty, through exhaustion, through years of working 2 jobs to keep a roof over our heads. I had given him everything I had, and he had taken even more. He had taken the very roof I worked so hard to provide. The police came 2 days later. Detectives Murphy and Chen listened to my statement, reviewed the documents Margaret provided, and confirmed what I already knew. Jessica and Daniel had vanished. Their cell phones were disconnected. Their social media accounts were deleted. They had cleaned out their apartment and disappeared like smoke. We've issued warrants for their arrest, Detective Murphy told me. But I'll be honest with you, Mrs. Harrison. Cases like this can take months or even years to resolve. These people often hide assets, use false identities, and stay off the grid. We'll do everything we can, but you should prepare for a long fight. A long fight. I had just survived heart surgery. I was supposed to be resting, recovering, starting cardiac rehabilitation. Instead, I was preparing for legal warfare against my own son. The hospital discharged me a week after the surgery. I left with a walker, a bag of medications, strict orders to avoid stress, and absolutely nowhere to go. Rachel took me to her hotel room. She had extended her stay indefinitely, putting her own life on hold to take care of me. That first night in that sterile hotel room, sleeping in a bed that wasn't mine, wearing clothes Rachel had bought me because I couldn't access my house to get my belongings, I felt like a ghost. Like I had died on that operating table and this nightmare was some kind of afterlife punishment. May, Rachel said from the other bed, I need you to listen to me. I turned to look at her in the darkness. You're going to survive this, she continued. You survived losing your husband. You survived raising a child alone. You survived heart surgery. You're going to survive this too. And then you're going to make them pay for what they did. Her words lit something inside me. A small flame in the darkness. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind, but cold, determined rage. She was right. I would survive this. And I would make sure Jessica and Daniel faced consequences for their cruelty. Margaret filed a civil lawsuit against both of them, even though we didn't know where they were. She also filed complaints with the State Bar Association about the lawyer who had prepared the documents, demanding an investigation into his practices. The new owners of my house, Karen and Tom Mitchell, turned out to be decent people caught in an awful situation. They had paid cash in good faith, believing they were buying property from a legitimate seller. Technically, the sale was legal because Jessica had been on the deed as co-owner. Margaret explained that my best hope was getting a court to rule the deed transfer invalid due to undue influence and mental incapacity, but that would take time and might not even work. In the meantime, Karen and Tom made an unexpected offer. Mrs. Harrison, Tom said when they met with Margaret and me, we feel terrible about what happened to you. We can't give you the house back. We've already invested money in repairs and we have a mortgage, but we'd like to help. How? I asked. We're going to rent out the basement apartment, Karen explained. It's fully furnished and has its own entrance. We'll rent it to you for $300 a month, which is well below market rate. It's not a permanent solution, but it gives you a place to stay while you figure things out. I started crying right there in Margaret's office. These strangers were showing me more kindness than my own family had. Why would you do this? I asked. Because it's the right thing to do, Karen said simply, and because no one should be homeless, because they trusted the wrong people. So I moved into the basement apartment of my own house, the house I had bought with my husband 42 years ago, the house where I had raised my son. Only now I was a tenant, paying rent to strangers, living in a space that had once stored my Christmas decorations and my husband's tools. The irony was almost funny. Almost. Rachel had to go back home to her job and her family, but she called me every single day. She also sent me money to help with expenses just until my Social Security started covering basics. Margaret worked tirelessly on my case. She filed motions. She tracked down witnesses. She subpoenaed bank records. She was determined to find Jessica and Daniel and make them face justice. 3 months after the surgery, Detective Murphy called with news. We found them. My heart stopped. Where? Nevada. They rented a house outside Las Vegas using fake names. But Jessica made a mistake. She used her real Social Security number to open a utility account. We've coordinated with local police to execute the arrest warrants. 2 days later, Detective Chen showed me booking photos. Jessica and Daniel, standing against a height chart, holding number plaques, looking like the criminals they were. But seeing those photos didn't bring the satisfaction I expected. I just felt sad. Sad for the life I had built that they destroyed. Sad for the son I had loved who had betrayed me so completely. Sad for the woman I had welcomed into my family, who had repaid my kindness with theft. The criminal trial took 8 months to start. By then, I had settled into a strange new life in my basement apartment. Karen and Tom were wonderful landlords. They invited me for dinner occasionally. They helped me carry groceries. Their kids called me Grandma May. It should have been perfect. But every time I climbed those basement stairs and saw the main floor of the house I used to own, I felt the loss all over again. When the trial finally began, I had to testify. I sat in that courtroom and told my story to strangers while Daniel sat 20 feet away, refusing to look at me. Jessica's defense attorney tried to argue that I had willingly sold the house, that I had been competent when I signed the documents, that this was a family dispute being criminalized. But Margaret destroyed those arguments with medical records proving I had been heavily sedated when I signed the closing papers, with testimony from the Mitchells about the suspicious circumstances. With bank records showing the money had been immediately hidden, the jury deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts: elder abuse, fraud, theft, forgery. Jessica got 7 years in prison. Daniel got 5. The judge said she was giving them lighter sentences because they had no prior criminal records, but she made it clear that what they did was unconscionable. You preyed on a vulnerable woman during a medical crisis, Judge Richardson said, looking at both of them with disgust. You violated the most basic bonds of family and trust. I hope prison gives you time to understand the magnitude of your betrayal. They were also ordered to pay restitution, all of it, every penny they had stolen. But Margaret warned me not to expect the money anytime soon. They spent most of it, she explained. A new car, expensive furniture, gambling debts. Getting restitution from prisoners earning cents per hour will take decades. So I won the case but lost the war. I had justice but not my house. I had vindication but not my money. I had proof of their guilt but not my life back. That night, sitting in my basement apartment, I made a decision. I could spend my remaining years being bitter about what was stolen, or I could build something new with what I had left. I chose to build. I got a part-time job at the local library. The pay was modest, but I loved being around books and helping people. I started a support group for victims of financial elder abuse, meeting twice a month at the community center. I sold the few pieces of jewelry I had left and used the money to take a watercolor painting class, something I had always wanted to do but never had time. For when I was working and raising Daniel, I made new friends, real friends, people who valued me for who I was, not what I could give them. And slowly, painfully, I began to heal. Now, 2 years later, I'm 70 years old. I still live in that basement apartment. Karen and Tom have become like family to me. Their kids really do call me Grandma May, and I've watched them grow from elementary school to middle school. Jessica and Daniel are still in prison. I've never visited. I've never written. When Daniel sent me a letter 6 months into his sentence, apologizing and begging for forgiveness, I read it once and threw it away. Some betrayals are too deep to forgive. Last month, Margaret called with unexpected news. The state had seized some hidden assets from Jessica's family, who had helped her hide money. My restitution fund would be getting $75,000. It's not everything, Margaret said, but it's something. Something. After everything I lost, $75,000 felt like both a fortune and an insult. But I'm gonna take it and use it wisely. Maybe a down payment on a small condo. Maybe invested carefully to provide income. Maybe split it with Rachel, who sacrificed so much to help me. I haven't decided yet. But for the first time since that horrible day in the hospital, I'm thinking about the future with hope instead of dread. People ask me if I've learned anything from this nightmare. I've learned that family is not always blood. I've learned that trust must be earned, not automatically given. I've learned that kindness should never be confused with weakness. Most importantly, I've learned that survival is not just about staying alive. It's about finding reasons to keep living even after everything has been taken from you. My name is May. I'm 70 years old. My daughter-in-law sold my house while I was unconscious in a hospital bed. My son helped her steal everything I had. But they didn't destroy me. They tried, but they failed. I'm still here. I'm still fighting. I'm still building a life worth living. And that's the greatest revenge of all. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button for more real-life stories.